Grip socks are great, and now they're even better with Pure Grip Socks Pro. Better fit, moisture wicking, amazing comfort, and all the extra grip you need. Choose from 10 different colors for just $16.99 a pair at puregripsocks.com.
When it comes to football boots, New Balance as a brand is capable of greatness. Case in point, the Furon V6 Plus. It's a legitimately fantastic pair of football boots, really underrated. But at the same time, New Balance is also a brand that's capable of producing some stinkers. Case in point, the Tekela V3 Pro, their first attempt at a laceless football boot that quite simply was too stiff, didn't fit all that well, and wasn't as good as the Adidas laceless models that they're trying to compete against. With that said, what we're here to talk about today is its replacement in the form of the New Balance Tekela V3 Plus Pro, a football boot that might look very similar to the model it replaces, and in a lot of ways it is, but it sees some significant improvement that even surprised me, and perhaps most importantly, it is now legitimately a great option if you're on the market for a pair of laceless boots, especially considering the $210 retail price, which is $65 less than the retail price of any of the top-end laceless options from Adidas. The question is, how are they different from the Tekela V3 they replace, and how do they compare to the Adidas alternatives? Is this legitimately a laceless football boot that you should have on your radar? We're going to talk about all that as I go over the tech specs, as well as take a look at how they fit and feel on feet. So if you're interested in learning more, please stick around, watch the entire review. And if you're interested in a pair for yourself, you can click the first link down below. That's going to take you to the review page on my website, where you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes, where you'll be able to pick these up below their normal $210 retail price. As always, if you guys do end up enjoying the video and want to continue seeing reviews of football boots from brands that are a little bit less popular, please don't forget to support this one with a like. And also, guys, we just hit a milestone of 700,000 subscribers this year, but I have a goal of hitting 750,000 by the end of 2021. So for those of you guys that watch the content and enjoy it, but might not be subscribed to the channel, it'd mean the world to me if you could hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. That was a big voice crack. Wow. As far as tech specs go, if you just read them out, the Tekela V3 Plus is pretty well identical to that of the V3 that it replaces, which is why I didn't exactly have high expectations for these. But once I actually got these on my feet and had the opportunity to try them out, it was pretty noticeable right from the get-go that this is a huge improvement over the original, mainly in the form of the kinetic stitch upper, which still features this 3D texturing to it, which you might relate back to some of the older Puma Future models, although this feels significantly more flexible, but I think maybe compares a little bit better to something like the OG Nike Magista Obra 1, but also with more thickness to it, and maybe that's not the best comparison and I'm getting people's hopes up. Nonetheless, this is a significantly softer and more pliable upper than what was found on the original, where the original had this kinetic stitch kind of hard texturing in the form of really dense stitching kind of running along the outside of the laceless system. It just felt bad on your feet. This still has similar patterns with dense stitching in these areas, but it just ends up feeling a lot softer, and I'm not sure if they changed up the padding on the inside lining of this upper, but in general, if you're looking for something that has that sock-like level of comfort and softness on your feet, which is definitely enhanced because of the laceless design, this just feels really, really nice. And I guess if you're comparing it to other laceless models that are out there right now, there really isn't much else that compares to it from a sock-like kind of slightly padded perspective, because if you look at the Adidas alternatives, the X-Line, the Speed Flow, it's very thin, more of a barefoot feel. The Adidas Predator, it's a very thin prime knit upper with really no extra padding to it at all. And then the Copa Sense Plus is kind of doing its own thing and feels absolutely nothing like this. So in its own right, it kind of has its own unique experience on offer, which is something that I always like to see from any football boot, let alone one with a laceless design. Speaking of which, the laceless design is remarkably secure, to the point where these are actually really difficult to put on and take off. Now, you'll notice that they do have have this little extension piece at the back of the heel, as well as this extension piece at the front to grab onto to pull the opening as large as possible to slide your foot in. But then if you look underneath this elasticated section of knit, you're gonna find what is basically a wide elastic band that covers the entire laceless section of the boot. And you'll already notice that the elasticated knit that you have across the top of the foot is relatively narrow as far as the channel is concerned, which means that there's not a lot of stretch to this upper as it is. So you add that reinforcement piece underneath, which basically just spans from here to here, and it really doesn't allow for much stretch across the top of the foot, which means once you actually do get these on, there's not a lot of stretch to this upper, which makes them feel more secure than most laceless boots that I've worn, which is a very good thing. The downside, however, is the fact that they are quite difficult to put on, so something to be aware of. Nonetheless, it seems like they've either refined the shape, or because the upper is so much more pliable this time around, the fit of this boot is really nice, and I think you'll be able to see that on feet. Nonetheless, I really like this laceless system. It's extremely simple with just thin elasticated knit on the top layer, and then of course a reinforcement kind of elastic band on the inside, but it's quite effective in terms of giving you that nice secure feel without, of course, the use of laces. Moving to the rear, not much has changed. I guess you could consider this to be a mid-cut design, although for the most part it is just a low cut with a little bit of an extension piece, more so on the medial side than on the lateral side. You have an internal plastic heel counter, and then the heel liner is entirely made from this soft, almost synthetic suede type material, plenty of extra padding, and actually does a good job of holding your heel in place despite the laceless system. Then the insole, that is fully removable as well. You can see it features their Infinigrip liner on the surface, which has this really soft silicone texturing to it, grips your socks quite nicely. I really like this lining material. And then it's made from a single layer of what is admittedly kind of like a relatively cheap black foam in terms of it being very airy, but it is quite lightweight, I'll give them that. And as far as insoles go, I think the liner is kind of the star of the show here. As for the sole plate and stud pattern, it has not undergone any changes at all. It's still a nylon construction, which means that for the most part, it has a little bit more of a rigid sensation than I think you might expect. Obviously with this stiffener bar through the midfoot as well as through the heel, it's nice and solid through there, but it still has decent flexibility through the forefoot. It's not necessarily speed boot stiff, but it does have that little bit of spring back to it. And then of course you have TPU plastic stud tips, which is just a slightly softer plastic material. The normal material stud tips would normally be made out of. And of course, this is their FG stud pattern, which is actually not that different from the Adidas layout in terms of having 3 studs along the side of the forefoot, 1 support stud in the middle, and then 4 at the back of the heel. The studs in general are kind of square in shape with rounded corners, so the end result is something that feels more along the lines of a conical stud pattern, but just with that little bit of additional bite when pushing off. For the most part, it's a pretty standard stud pattern. If you've worn anything from Adidas over the last decade or so, you kind of know what to expect from a traction standpoint. And then when it comes to weight, there isn't a huge difference compared to the model it replaces, but there is a difference. In a size 9.5 US, you can see the Tekela V3 Plus Pro weighs in at 7.5 ounces, the equivalent of 212 grams, which is roughly 10 grams lighter than the model it replaces. Again, not a hugely significant amount of weight. I think what you're definitely going to notice more so is the improved quality of the knit upper, as well as just the way that it wraps your foot in general. But at 7.5 ounces, it's not a super lightweight pair of football boots, but they are certainly not going to weigh you down. So here they are on feet, where, like I mentioned earlier, they're not the easiest to put on. Something to be aware of is that once you slide them on your feet, that little band that actually adds structure to the laceless system inside of the boot will likely bunch up at this top edge. So you're gonna have to reach inside and then pull it tight so you don't have that little bulge on top of your foot. But once they're on, honestly, these feel really good. The upper is so much softer than the original Tekela V3 Pro, and the boots as a whole just wrap your foot really nicely and feel relatively secure. because of the relatively small opening, which does make these more difficult to put on, I'm actually wearing these not with grip socks, but instead with Pure Socks Classic, which don't have any grips, but are extremely affordable at just $6.99 a pair. They're available in either black or white. And honestly, whether you're not a fan of grip socks or whether you just want something inexpensive, a good quality pair of socks goes a long way in terms of the experience you're going to have from a comfort perspective with your football boots. If you're interested in checking out some for yourself, they're available as a crew sock length or even in an ankle cut at puregripsocks.com, which of course will be linked down below. As far as the overall fit and lockdown is concerned, the boots as a whole fit pretty snug. You can definitely tell that the majority of the tension is kind of in this upper part of the midfoot where that band is most prominent, through the forefoot and toe box area, and certainly through the heel. They don't feel quite as secure on your feet, but I definitely don't think that they're bad as far as laceless football boots go. These are pretty much up to the same standard from a lockdown perspective as most of the other laceless options out there. So no major complaints there. At this point, I kind of feel like most people know whether or not laceless football boots are for them. This is probably not going to change anybody's mind if you're just not into laceless boots, at least from a fit and lockdown perspective, but I do think they fit well as a whole. From a width perspective, something that's cool about New Balance boots, at least their top end models, is they do offer a wide fit variation. This is the regular width model, which I would not personally recommend for wide feet, simply based on how difficult they are to put on. Maybe the wide fit model is a little bit better for wider foot types. I would assume that it is, but I've yet to try them, so I can't comment on how much wider they actually are. As long as you don't have wide feet though, and you don't mind struggling to get the boots on, these will fit most people. And as far as sizing is concerned, I'm wearing these in my usual size 9.5 US, and the fit and the length is perfect. So if you're looking to order a pair for yourself, I would strongly recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. So in conclusion, should you buy the New Balance Tekela V3 Pro? Well, if you're on the market for a laceless football boot with a knitted upper that has that sock-like fit, feel, and touch on the ball, then I think you'll be pretty happy with what these have on offer, especially considering the price when compared to Adidas laceless options. But if you're not looking for exactly that, I'm not sure that there's enough here to draw new people in. Yes, the boots feel good, and I think more importantly, they feel significantly better than the Tekela V3, but as a general pair of football boots, it's a knitted upper with a laceless design that arguably would have been a lot better had they added laces, with a Soleplate end stud pattern and overall weight that is pretty bang on average. I don't want to say that these are bad football boots by any means at all, because they're not. This is a really solid two boot lineup from the New Balance brand right now between the Tekela and the Furon. However, I just don't see the appeal of a football boot like this, especially with the New Balance N on the side. So for most people, it's probably not going to be for you. But again, if you want a laceless football boot with a high quality knitted upper, this is one of, if not the best options out there. It's not for me, but it might be for you. Anyways, guys, that's it for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to support it with a like. Again, if you're interested in a pair for yourself, first link down below, go ahead and check it out. If you have any questions, as always, leave them down below in the comment section, and I'll do my best to get an answer out to you. If you aren't subscribed to the channel already, make sure you hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. You can find all my social media information linked down below in the description as well. Other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.